Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Ron Deutsch. I'm the Executive Director of New Yorkers for Fiscal Fairness. I'm joined here today with members of the Better Choice Budget Campaign, the One New York Fighting for Fairness Coalition, Citizen Action of New York State, and many, many other groups from across New York State to talk about, number one, we want to talk about the deficit reduction plan put forward by the governor. Last week, as you all know, the leaders met. They came out of their meeting and said, we're going to push for closing this current $1.7 billion gap that we have in this year's budget. We want to do that by next week. So they released a bill, A-163, and it has a Senate companion. And we were very concerned about what was in that bill, because that bill contained many cuts to nonprofit programs, ranging everything from legal services to chronic homeless to runaway youth, HIV/AIDS, community college programs, and the list goes on.
Citizen Action and AQE were two of the main organizations that fought and won the fight for equitable funding of schools in New York State. The governor is backing away from that victory by proposing to cut school funding in the executive budget. The new federal money should target the school districts where the need is greatest. There is no reason to do mid-year cuts until we know how much New York is getting in the stimulus bill. This goes beyond the issue of education. We are talking about how all our vulnerable populations will be affected. As a parent and community member, we are afraid of larger classroom sizes. We're afraid of losing our teachers and faculty. We are afraid of our children failing. What we don't understand is why the governor isn't sharing these
Just want to remind everybody that we're in the 11th month of the state fiscal year. And our community and scores of other community-based organizations that are on the front lines of serving homeless and poor and disabled people are being asked to take 50% cuts in our budgets that were approved by the legislature and the
government
governor.
doesn't ask those that we contract out to build bridges to stop construction when they've done a third of their work and say, oh, we're going to pay you for 50% of the work that you've done, even though you've done a third of it. This is the same thing that's happening. It's comparable in the human services field. They can't take back the money that they've spent. They've already provided wages for people, and they can't retroactively take them back. And there's no private dollars to fill those gaps anymore. So we have to send the message very clearly to government that we need to make sure that the dollars are there to protect services like HIV/AIDS programs, child care programs, after-school programs, homeless services programs. It runs the gamut. This is not the time to be enacting a reduction in
U.S.
money
Senate
for Social
is
Security.
taking up, either today or later this week, President Obama's economic stimulus package. The House of Representatives passed it by a strong margin last week. So just a brief word on what should be in the package and how the package should be constructed. If you see from the chart here, this is a chart that was derived from Moody's, the well-known economic forecasting firm, which very simply illustrates that not all stimulus packages and not all funding packages are alike. Food stamps and unemployment insurance create the most benefit for the economy, and state and local funding like Medicaid are right beneath that. So we really have to look at, we have to see the ball not only on the state level but on the federal level, what kinds of things we should be pushing for, and pushing Senator Schumer and Gillibrand.
In a recession, the last thing you want to do is to cut government spending, particularly government spending that impacts upon low-income people. Look at the chart over there. You notice that the biggest bang for the buck comes from investments in the food stamp program. We have a rainy day fund, a tax stabilization fund. That is what should be used short-term to resolve the deficit. We should be waiting for the federal stimulus package to come through. We should be looking how to increase funding for these programs, not cut them. We can't get deeper.
We need the governor to realize and to understand that this flies in the face of basic macroeconomic principles right now. You don't make these cuts at a time when people are struggling and the economy is in a depression. And you especially don't make these cuts at a time when the federal government is going to provide us necessary funds to make sure we don't have to make these cuts. So it just seems that the governor really needs to take a step back, reflect on the things that are happening around him, the cuts that are being put forward right now, and say, this is not what we need to be doing right now. This will hurt the economy. This will hurt people who are already hurting and in need, and it's going to create greater job loss than we have